Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I very rarely film my Phalaenopsis, mainly because they're very rarely all out at once. But as most of them are, I thought I'd grab them quickly. This is my Phalaenopsis Sweet Memory. That's got a nice spike coming. He blooms on that in the near future. There's a couple of Phalaenopsis up there. They're not mine, they're my daughter's, so I won't go into those. Some of these down here are also my daughter's, some are mine. Most of these have got spikes either coming or on them. The one on the far left at the back, that's got a spike pushing up. The one next to it's got a little spike. That one I don't think is long for this world, that tiny little one. And the very pale coloured leaf one, there's no spike on that. The one next to it's my daughter's, that's just started a spike. That's the one with the mottled leaves. Unusual Phalaenopsis, that one. One next to it's got a nice spike coming. That one's already in bloom. And the one up there hasn't got a spike at the moment. This big monster here, with its nice big new leaf, I've just cut that spike. I don't normally cut spikes expecting them to branch, but as this has a large flower that I like, I thought we'll try and get that one to branch while this one's pushing on anyway. So potentially two spikes on that, not definitely. This one's just growing a new leaf and started another one and a spike, so that one's coming on nicely. New roots everywhere on that, but no spike. This one's already in bloom. This Sidera japonica, still no spike on that. Nope, still only the one spike it had when I got it. Hasn't spiked since, but it has grown two leaves, so maybe it will soon. And this one big one here that's not mine is also got a spike on it. So and all the others are the two mounted ones up there, one of which is in bloom. That's the one with the nice yellow flowers, and the other one up the back's no spike, no sign of spikes on that. So there's quite a few spikes around on the Phalaenopsis. They've all come down away from, oh, forget the one in flower, why don't you? I always forget that one. It just sits there with its nice flowers on. Yeah, so I'd say well over half of the Phalaenopsis are in spike, and since they came down away from the really strong light, the leaves seem to have gone a nicer green. So they were getting too much light, definitely. This one's still showing signs of the paler green leaves, but they are slowly but surely getting back to a normal colour. So they were getting too much light. The only one that now gets a relatively high light is the Sidera japonica. This one's getting too much light, but it seems to take it. The Sweet Memory has got relatively pale leaves. You know, it's slightly shaded by other plants, but that's in quite a highlight situation later in the day, you know, from sort of mid-afternoon literally till the sun disappears. But it seems to be okay with it at the moment, and it's such a big plant at the moment, I haven't got anywhere else to put it, that wouldn't be in the draft from the inlet fan, which is a cold chill. You know, for a Phalaenopsis that is a warm grower, it doesn't really want a cold blast of air on it every time the fan turns on. So I'm limited to where I can put that. So I'm watering pots and the dailies today. I'll see what else I find as I go round, but it's very rarely that most of the Phalaenopsis are actually accessible, because they're all tucked away in little places, you know, spaces where they don't get too much light, and they're not in my way because they don't need watering that often. You know, I let mine virtually totally dry out, and then they get an absolute soak. Now, that's how I water them. I don't keep them moist, I don't keep them damp, they dry. They're all in bark, no moss or anything like that, so they can dry out thoroughly, and then they get an absolute drowning. That's how I do mine, and it seems to work. We've got quite a few spikes coming. Plenty of new leaves around as well, so the vegetative growth is also working quite well. They obviously do better out here, higher humidity, and they also get extra warmth out here, which they do need. We do tend to forget they are warm growers. They need that extra warmth. So out here they get it. And I'll see what else I can find as I go round. Forgot to say, the very reason that they're all accessible at the moment is because they've all just had a higher level of fertiliser, so I needed separate water for them. They've all just had quite a high level of feed. They do feed at quite high levels, but most of the time here they don't get it because they get watered in with the other stuff, so they get a medium level feed, shall we say. But yeah, today they had a higher dose, so they just watered all on their own with their own water, which I've now changed and refertilised with a lower level for general purpose stuff like that lot, and the bulbophyllums down through there and a few other bits and pieces. So basically the Paphiopedilums, Restrepias and Masdevallias all get a very low level of feed, so I do them first and get that out of the way, and then I dosed up a new lot of water with a much higher level of feed and got the Phalaenopsis out of the way, mainly because they're here, so they're sort of in that area. And now I'll move on to, you know, things like Oncidiums and Encyclias and, you know, Dendrobium kikis and all the other bits and pieces, the bulbophyllums that are up there, and they'll all get a medium level feed. So they all had a flush last time, so get some feed back into them now. Now in the last video I showed that Coelogene fimbriata that's mounted, and referred to the large plant that was some pieces taken off of, and the large plant was taken out of a, I don't know whether it was a large pot or a large basket, but breaking down media, so it needed to come out, and it got split into two. This is the fuller pot, and this one, although hasn't got so many growths in it, it does have some lovely strong new growths pushing up. And if you look at the two here, this hasn't got much media in it. I thought we'll try one quite shallow and we'll try one a bit deeper and see which one does best. Well, they're both pushing out nice new growths, but there's a difference now, and this is a risk I'm willing to take at this time of year when I've got higher temperatures and very long days. If you look at that pot, it's still damp, yeah? Now that could go another couple of days without being watered, whereas this one is dry and needs water. They shouldn't get dry for a start, so they both get watered. I can't put that back and remember to take it out in a couple of days and water it, so even though it's still slightly damp, it'll still get water and it'll use it. You know, there's quite a few plants this time of year get watered even though they're still damp. I don't wait for everything to dry out. And Coelogenes like moisture in the growing season. You've got a job to overwater them, quite honestly, so they're both going to get soaked. One's a little drier than it should be, and one's still slightly damp. They'll still both get drowned. I love it when you take a risk and it actually works. This was in very poor media. It was labelled as a Cambria, but it's a large percentage of it is Odontoglossum. And it wasn't a strong plant, but I loved the bloom, so I bought it. But because of the media it was in, I took the risk of repotting it while that new growth was quite young. Now some of the Oncidium intergenerics don't produce their roots until literally the new growths are not far off full height, in which case this plant would have had to survive on its old root system, which was poor. That's the polite version. But the new growth is pushing its new roots out, so that'll get the plant back again. Yeah, I took a risk and this time it worked. But you know, I keep the notes now, so I can update my notes and actually say new growths, new roots when new growth 2 to 3 inches. So in future, if I need to repot it, I'll know at what point is a good point. And preferably not when the new shoot's brand new, just leave it a little while until those nubbins show. And you know, if you're going to disturb a plant just as the new roots grow, it's pretty good, you know, it works. And this Psychopsis got a reprieve. I did actually put it to one side to be thrown away because of the state of its leaves, and I got slightly deluded because there were a pair. Oh, cheers, you would turn on now. I had a pair of Psychopsis, and the other one really is bad and definitely has some sort of bacterial or fungal infection and virtually no roots and no signs of new growth. So and this one I put in the same category, but I've sort of re-looked at it, and bearing in mind it got too cold in the winter, which probably didn't help, you've got this spike here is at the back of the plant on the oldest pseudobulb, and it looks like it's failing. Hang on, let's get back where you can get some sort of focus, because it's not pushing that green element. So it may be that the back of the plant's going, but the front of the plant, down in here, there are new roots growing. So under its last growth, which wasn't brilliant, but it did that in the winter, you know, in the cold. So what can you expect, really? It's a warm grower. This shouldn't get down below 18, 19 degrees, and it was down to 13, 14. It's too cold, and no light. So it's not a high light lover, but it has got quite a strong new growth, and there are some new roots growing. And this is a pair of leaves, so this pseudobulb did 2 leaves, neither of which are very good, and its other leaf isn't very good. But if it pushes up a new growth with a strong leaf, I could actually take the back of the plant off and reduce its workload, because this spike's okay. I mean, that bud is pushing on, it's showing its colours now, so unless it blasts, it's actually going to open a bloom. The previous one just dropped the bud, it didn't like it at all. But it hadn't long been repotted then, and it didn't have good roots, but now it's growing some new ones, so it's got a reprieve for now. I will review it on a regular basis. But it's beautiful flowers, you know, I'd be ashamed to lose it, and if you try and replace a decent sized Psychopsis, you're looking at a lot of money. You know, they're not fast growers. Unless they're in really good conditions, which is high heat, high humidity, low to medium light-ish, you know, and if you can maintain that day and night, they're quite strong growers. But in the UK, unless you've got a warm to hot greenhouse, they're not, you know, they do as best as they can, and this one's trying. So the fact that it's prepared to put a bit of effort in, so am I. So it gets to stay for a bit. We'll see. This is another one I took a little bit of a risk with, but for me it had to be done. This is the little Miltonia flavescens that I got at the Orchid Society, and it was in rock wool, and it was wringing wet. I think I even squeezed some of the rock wool out on the video where you know, when I got it, to show just how wet it was. And I took it out of its pot, and it still took nearly a week to dry off. And I got all the rock wool off and repotted it, thinking, well, it's got a couple of little new growths pushing on, let's hope they do some roots soon. Well, project worked. New roots there. The other new growth's in the middle of the plant, but it's still doing its new roots. Yeah, I presume the camera's picking that up. So it's got new roots on both of its new growths, and nice new media for it to go in, so that should pull on nicely now. It's remotely possible it could bloom on those new growths, but looking at pictures of mature plants, mature versions of this, they're an awful lot bigger than mine, so this is probably still quite a young plant. So maybe not, maybe next time round, but at least it's going to grow. That's the important thing. I don't think it would have lasted long in the stuff it was in. Okay, I shall finish off today with a newly opened Tolumnia. This is Tolumnia Big Bang, first bloom just opened. Now in the picture it shows some green on it, so I don't know whether it's going to be a colour changer or just it's going to stay red and yellow. We shall have to wait and see, but a lot of the Tolumnias do change colour, and that does have a greeny tinge to the yellow. Camera's probably not picking it up. I just had to shut all the fans off to keep the bloom still to actually film it. But I've been changing. You know, it's going to be difficult to see, but all the Tolumnias up on that shelf are now facing away from the light. And that's nothing to do with the plants. The plants are still getting top light, so they still get plenty of light. But I think they're just drying out too fast. They're getting too warm facing the brightest light for most of the day. I've got a feeling it's just a bit too much. They just seem to be getting dry incredibly quickly. So by putting their backs to the bright light, the moss and the root area is in the shade, and the plant gets its light from above. So that's a little bit of a change. What else have I changed? for the same reason, quite a few of the Tolumnias and a couple of other bits and bobs have gone on that rack. Because again, that rack gets its back to the brightest light in the morning, and then as the sun comes round to the highest light level, you know, midday to late afternoon, they're well away from that light. You have to excuse the fog. I just realised I'm filming through the fog. But yeah, so quite a few things have gone up there. Try and take advantage of just not drying out quite so fast. You know, we're heading for our longest days now. We're only 5 or 10 minutes short of 16-hour days, and if the sun's out all day, that's an awful lot of intense light, and I'm reluctant to put the second layer of shade netting on because we tend to get more dull days than bright lights, and it's sort of counterproductive to shut out too much light. Yeah, so a few things have been moved around. This is pushing on nicely. Seem to grow very, very fast. Still, it's all good stuff. I like growing fast. It's a shame that that's going. That didn't last too long. And those have gone. I said they would. So yeah, I'll do a bit more filming tomorrow. I've still got a bit more pot watering to do tomorrow. It's mainly that massive shelf up there, and then down through those racks. That's actually not that many plants, and then the Nobiles, and down through those few bits and pieces. So not a huge watering session, and I'm just finishing off watering the mounts at the moment, and the time is 3 o'clock. And the whole point of watering the dailies late today is so that I don't have to do them tomorrow. So that way I can just do my pots quite early in the day, and I get a free day, and we might go out somewhere. I don't think the weather's going to be bright and sunny like it is today, more like sunny spells and slightly overcast. But quite honestly, the type of weather, unless it's raining, doesn't stop me doing an orchid hunt, but it could reduce the old butterfly count if the sun's not out. But yeah, I've got a couple of places in mind, never been to before, so a bit of an experiment. But yeah, I might have a day out tomorrow. See how I feel. Okay, see you next time then.